Welcome to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast, where brave people share their story to inspire others in what's possible. I'm your host, Megan Babcock, and the founder of the It's Your Story to Tell platform and the Coach Collective, and I'm really excited for today's guest. Thank you for being here with me, Julie Nowacki. You are just such an exciting addition to our Coach Collective, and I am so excited and happy to have you as part of the team.
Well, it's an honor for me to be here with you, Megan. I'm excited to see and hear what we're going to be discussing today.
Well, we're going to be talking about how God used some hard seasons in your life and how that helped you to develop skills and become more equipped to help people unlock their voice and amplify it. Now, we realize that some of you listening may be walking through a season of pain and heartache. And if you're in a dark and desperate place, which both Julie and I have been in our past, we want to encourage you to not face this alone. You can reach out to us through the podcast, through It's Your Story to Tell platform. But if you are in a crisis situation and need help right away, I just want to encourage you to call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. Before we jump in and let Julie talk us through kind of her journey to where she's at today, I want to share with you a little bit about who Julie is. So I had the pleasure of getting to meet Julie in June of last year, which is just so crazy that it's been under a year, because I feel like I've known Julie for a long time. We have gotten to become close over this year in a lot of the different things that we've been involved in, but we met at a conference called Heaven in Business. I wasn't even planning to be there. It was something that a friend just reached out, and I was like, wow, sure, why not? I had just in April launched the It's Your Story to Tell coaching platform, and I just went. I didn't even know what I was actually Heaven in Business. What is this? And I got to meet Julie, and that just started us off on a wild, next month, really. We had multiple conferences that we attended, and then we ended up coming together to do She Leads Oregon, which we'll talk about in episode 2, where we're talking more about all the different things that Julie is doing. But it's just been such a pleasure to get to know you, Julie, and she really has the most diverse skill set. Between where she was a consultant and worked in a management role in music, film, she has worked in nonprofits, had nonprofits, been on nonprofit boards, you've run campaigns, so very involved in politics. You're now sitting on a finance committee for your county, is that right?
Yeah, for my local city. I'm on the budget committee. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And so thank you for coming on here and telling us, how you kind of navigated some of those hard moments and are now being able to use those in these different aspects of where God has been placing you to make a positive impact in the community.
Well, again, it's such an honor to be here. And, just like you, I wasn't supposed to be at that conference. I was actually in a very tragic place in my own life where I was questioning a lot of things. A couple of years prior to that, I was in a major car accident. So I was dealing with significant brain trauma. And financially, we were just at a loss. We had very little in our bank account. And I was at a desperate place. And someone reached out to me that I've known for a while. And he said, I really feel like you're supposed to be at this conference. And I said, I can't even afford this conference. I am literally at the point of saying, God, you have to come through, because I have given so much of my life to help people and to get them launched into their dreams and to come alongside of them without money being a motivation for why I do something, but just because I love people and I want to extend the kingdom of God. And thankfully, he approached me. I kind of was like, dragging my feet. I don't want to go to another conference. Like, seriously, Lord. And if it wasn't for me going there, you and I would not have met. And so I just think that's such a testimony of when there's such an impression on someone to invite or extend something to us when it just maybe not be something we want to even entertain. Out of our obedience, God puts a stamp of approval on it, and he goes above and beyond what we can ask, think, or imagine. So to go back a little bit, I was a very secure little kid growing up. I had parents that had radical faith that decided to sell everything and go on the road and do music. And so I was raised in a Christian home. My parents got divorced when I was 11, and that was a moment where I didn't believe God was good. And I started going down a path that was not the greatest path for me. As a rebellious teen, as someone who was angry at God, I actually kind of lived a duplicit life, a very hypocritical life. I would go to church, I would pretend I was doing all the right Christian good things, but then I would be a completely different person on the weekends. And I will never forget, I had a friend of mine who was not a believer, and she said, Julie, it's really hard. Sometimes I don't know if your light switch is up or if your light switch is down. And that was a recognition that I had to come to terms and be like, okay, God, am I going to be completely sold out for you, or am I going to be completely sold out for the world? Because I have two choices here. Both are looking pretty good, and there's opportunities in both. And I will never forget my dad, he got remarried to a woman, and at the age of 34, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And within 6 months, we lost her. And she had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And at this time, I was 17. I was out on my own, doing my own thing. I made the choice to move back in with my dad and walk through this very painful time to be somewhat like a surrogate mom to these little boys that were losing their mom. So I tell people I had to grow up really quickly and be hyper responsible and hyper productive and kind of put aside my emotions and feelings. So fast forward to this car accident, everything just came to a halt. And I really had to come to terms with, okay, my life is not what I thought it was going to be. And I think at times like this, we have to just depend on the Lord like we've never depended on him before. And I can talk a little bit more about my journey, several years prior to that, but I will give you room to share your thoughts.
Yeah, well, as you were sharing, something that really just stood out to me, and it's something that I have really been seeing in my own life, and as I am coaching or ministering, the power of choice.
Yeah.
We always have the power to choose. And for a long time in my own story, I didn't recognize that. And I think when you don't recognize that power of choice, you kind of naturally go into a victim mindset of, wow, this has happened to me. I'm stuck here. And that can result in a lot of anxiety, overwhelm, depression, anger at God, you name it, so many emotions. And now where I'm at in my life, because I recognize that I have a power to choose. And if I do nothing, that's a choice. I'm choosing to stay stuck. If I decide I'm not going to look behind that door because I don't want to deal with what's behind it, that's a choice. And now, instead of avoiding or compartmentalizing, I make a conscious choice to get curious about what is going on in this season, in this moment. As I feel my body wanting to respond in a very my heart's racing, or I'm feeling short of breath, all of these things now alert me to, you have a choice. Okay, what are you going to do in this moment? And I've really learned from the Lord. I mean, this is something that when I was in a very desperate place, that I cried out to him, I now am like, wow, it took you that long to get desperate and cry out to God, and he answered you like that. Like, why did you wait so long? And I was like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And he gave me the verse, take every thought captive. And I'm like, okay. And,
Right.
And then it was like, measure it, like choose. Do you want to live in alignment with me?
Right.
Which for me, it was, a way to measure it was up against the fruits of the Spirit, because if it was a different spirit, it was not where I wanted to be aligned with, right? And so as I stepped into that conscious choice, because you have to be conscious in order to make a choice. If you are just going through it, stuck in these hard places, subconsciously we just do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And that's the definition of insanity. And so I really just wanted to share that, because when you said that, I was like, yes, like that's where it starts. That's where revival, personal revival, recovery, redemption, everything starts from this place of curiosity and choice, where what do I want to decide? And so I would just say, take it from there. Like you were at that place, you had to grow up and keep walking us through.
Yeah, so it's interesting, the power of choice, because I feel like that's just something the Lord also wants me to talk about, because I had an opportunity to go to a youth camp, and I was a youth leader at a church during all of this. And I just felt like, God, I've lost my ability to dream. You've taken my parents' marriage. I was raised in a good Christian home. Now you've taken this young mom away from her 2 kids. You've taken me out of my own self-discovery time. I'm now living back with my dad, caretaking for my dad, dealing with a lot of his health issues. I have, just so much going on. I don't know if I can dream again. And I will never forget, there was a leader at the camp that said, you know what? I just feel like there's some people in this room that have lost their ability to dream. And my spirit just started, my heart was racing. And I'm like, I think I would say that this was the moment that I had to make that decision. God, am I going to believe that you are good and that you're going to restore dreams in my life? Or am I going to make a choice and believe you're not good and respond to this? And it could have gone either way. I mean, it was like, but when your heart is racing out of your chest and you're like, if I don't do something, it's not going to be good. So I remember going forward and I got prayed over and something broke off of me that day. And it was such a dynamic encounter that to this day, obviously I remember, because there was a moment where I chose to dream again. And I think it's really interesting, because that is my heart's cry for everybody now, is that they would achieve their dreams. Ephesians 3:20, God would go above and beyond what we can ask, think, or imagine. And I have been told many times, Julie, you are a dream releaser. You release dreams. And I call dreams that are dormant back to life in the name of Jesus. For those people that are listening right now, go back to those times in your life where maybe trauma, tragedy came into your life and you're saying, God, can I dream again? Can I trust you again? Are you good enough? And I would say he is. He is. And it's all about us going through these times where then they are personal testimonies that when we encounter people that are struggling, we can say, I've been there. But you know what? God is faithful. And so when I made that moment of conscious choice to go forward and say, okay, Lord, give me the dreams, give me the desires of your heart, because right now I feel empty. I feel like everything's been taken from me. Now you have to remember, I still was working for the Christian record company at this time. I still was managing artists. I still was doing the performance of calling people into their dreams, but I didn't believe I had any inside of me that would be fulfilled. And so I went through the motions, went through the performance, went through the putting on a facade, posturing, pretending, and posing that everything was okay, when there was a part of me that didn't know who I was. But everything looked good on the outside. Everybody would be like, Julie, you're so involved and you're just this and you're that. But there was a space that was a void that was missing, because I was being identified by what I was doing. Not by who is this little girl, Julie, that needs to feel safe, that her Father in heaven does protect, does look out for her, does want dreams to be released through her. It's not just about everybody else's dreams being realized, but what dream does he have for my life? And so that took me through the process of contending and praying that we would have a baby and get pregnant. And that was an 18-month process. We had our little girl, Audrey Joy, and then we got pregnant again. And I was not planning this one. In fact, I did not even want another baby. My husband and I were not on good terms in our marriage. And so at the moment of conception, we realized that the baby was not healthy. So I had to go through the surgical operation of removing it at 10 weeks. Found out that, 2 sperm had fertilized 1 egg, very unheard of. And so I ended up going on a birth control that literally made me go crazy, suicidal, depressed, anxious. And again, back to that time, God, who am I? Do you love me for who I am, not what I can perform and do for you? And that's where everything started to come to the surface. And I think God just put this anointing on my life when I surrendered everything. And I said, God, everything that I know of, I don't want to be doing it if you're not with me.
Yeah. Our identity can get really messed up growing up. And trauma can do it, just the way you're raised. For me, I took on perfectionism, people pleasing as a way to cope with things in my environment. And in that process, you lose who you are and who you were created to be. And that this identity and dreams, I just feel they're so connected. And I love that you called forth the dreams that people have, because I actually have a workshop on this about unlocking your dreams, because I really believe our dreams, those things that we think about and long for, are our God identity. It's our purpose that he has for us that is calling us forward. So those longings of your heart, the Lord does want to give those to you. He doesn't put them inside of you to just make you miserable and be like, sorry, wouldn't that be nice? But we have to be able to get into position for us to be able to realize those things. I'm going through the book of Genesis, and I'm going to be leading people through just the stories in the Bible of where God is always looking to redeem. Right. In every single story, that is the theme. But we have a choice to align with his redemptive power. Right. And until we can get our identity aligned with who he says we are. We can't recognize those dreams and unlock our full potential until both of those come together. And I would say our identity has to come first.
That's right.
Because that is what keeps us stuck and unable to fully embrace all the gifts and talents that we were given. And it sounds like that is what the Lord was teaching you as you started to surrender your identity. It's not in what I'm doing. It's not in the performance. It's not me coming in and rescuing people. It's like, what does God want from me? And then I don't want to do anything else, because that is creating for me depression, anxiety, troubles in my marriage, overwhelmed because you're trying to help people who aren't ready to help themselves. That was one of the things that I would do. And in fact, that desire to help people is a beautiful gift. But when it's not used with the boundaries and the wisdom that the Lord gives us, the intuition of the Holy Spirit, the red flags, and we just keep pressing forward, you know, we can actually misuse that gift and prevent people from getting to their surrender. Like you're describing, each of us have to come to that place of where we're ready to make the choice to align with who he says we are and what he's calling us in our lives to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, because one of the things that I started saying was, you know, I'm not going to strive to make something happen, because then you have to strive to sustain it. And that will just create such a level of frenzy and reactions instead of being
burnout. Like,
and burnout. Yeah.
So much burnout, right? And that's such a problem in the world today. I think that we have created this place where mental health is in a desperate place. And there's so much because of this inability to just be vulnerable, to not have to show up in this perfect way and have it all together.
And that's honestly kind of what started happening. I mean, when I came out of this place of, 9 months of just literal hell, is what, my Joseph season, my like strip everything of me and get me to a place of, wow, this is who I am, because I could not do everything I was doing. I struggled with social anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. I was raising a toddler. We had moved out of our home because of circumstances. I mean, everything was just kind of thrown up. And I was like, okay. So when the Lord literally got me out of this, it was because I said yes to something. And the craziest thing is what I said yes to was an MLM, a makeup company. I don't wear makeup very much, so I don't really know what I'm doing, but I said yes. And out of that yes of desperation, the Lord said yes. And when I started sharing my story of how we, particularly as women, need to be honest and vulnerable about what we're going through. There's too many people hiding in the shadows because they think they're all alone. And so I started getting involved in organizations that were rescuing girls out of human trafficking. I started getting, aware of just the next generation and how we can come alongside of them and be champions of healing, and started to share my story. And I got asked to start speaking in more places. And then I started just kind of mobilizing in my own community and getting other women together, and started Fierce Princess Warriors, a Facebook group. And really just kind of, if the Lord would drop something in my spirit, I'd respond. I'm like, yes, okay, Lord, yes, I'll do that. And I wouldn't necessarily have all the structure, all the foundational principles in place. I just knew that I was saying yes because there was a prompting in my spirit, and I did not want to disappoint God. And I wanted to be faithful with little, because there's a lot of people that want to steward large assignments. But can I tell you, if you're not stewarding the small assignments just by being there where God is placing you to be, and you may not know what you're doing there, He's not going to trust you with the large assignments. And I think we have to be careful on how we measure small and large as well. We have such a culture of consumerism and flashy things, but really there's no depth. It's only going out this way, but it's not going deep. And so even being in media and PR, the Lord is completely shifting my focus even on that. And how can we be more intentional with our relationship so that there's depth, that it's not shallow, there's actually vulnerability, transparency, more transformation, less information. And so it's just been a process. It's just been a process that I've just been
I love that.
growing
Transformation, not information.
Yeah.
That is so good. And I want us to just kind of wrap here for a minute, and we're going to start in episode 2, getting more. Let's go deeper into this vulnerability of what it is that God is, kind of the blueprints. What is He saying to you? What is He showing you about how we can help people find their identity, that they can live out their dreams, and that they can go deep into relationship and connection so that they can make a difference.
Come on, let's do it.
So Julie, tell us where people can find you. Obviously, she's one of the newest coaches. You can find her on our website, yay. But you also have some different social media platforms that we will definitely link everything here. But let us know where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. I have a public page. You can join Fierce Princess Warriors. It's a great community of women that just come alongside of each other and pray, and we just contend for, the kingdom of heaven to be displayed on earth. I have other social media through Convergent Media, Convergent Promotions. That's more of my promo business side of things. But there's lots of places. Just type in my name and you can find me.
Like she said, she's got her hands in a little bit of everything, which I love. All right. Well, thank you for being here. You guys come back, hear more about Julie's heart and what we want to see happen in this world.
Yes.
We appreciate you watching. If you know someone who's struggling, please share this with them, because they will be encouraged by just hearing stories of transformation. We're not here to give information like Julie said, but really to share what is possible through Jesus and our surrender. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
See you soon.
All right, so I will just quickly do another little intro, and we'll just jump in. Welcome to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast, where brave people share their story to inspire others and what's possible. I'm your host, Megan Babcock, and the founder of the It's Your Story to Tell coaching platform. I'm going to say that again. I'm your host, Megan Babcock, and the founder of It's Your Story to Tell and the Coach Collective. I'm so happy to be back here today with Julie Nowacki, and she is one of our new coaches, so you can check her out on the It's Your Story to Tell coaching page. So go and find, we have multiple coaches there that are there to support you if you need help. And if you are struggling and in crisis, we just want to encourage you to reach out, and there is help available. So call or text 988 or chat 988 lifeline.org. If you did not hear episode 1 with Julie, we were talking about her journey through some darkness, but how God has used that to be able to make her more impactful in the work and ministries that she does. And when we were wrapping up, she said something so powerful about, we're here to help you find transformation. We're not just here to dump information on you. And we really want to encourage you to ask the Holy Spirit. In both of our stories, when we were at a place of surrender and asked God for direction, He gave it to us. So don't wait till life is crashing around you. I don't recommend it. I have been there and done that. And when I did reach out to people and got into community, and I was vulnerable. So vulnerability and safe connections is what allows you to move forward in a very safe, loving environment and achieve the transformation that Julie and I are just believing for you. So when we ended up there, Julie, you were just sharing about your heart, and I'd love for you to share whatever the Lord's leading you about how we need to move forward and together to make a difference.
Yeah, I think you really you hit on it right there. And that's something I've been asking the Lord about, and that is safety and security. Like I said, I was raised up in a very safe and secure home. I was not abused. My parents were loving, kind. I was thriving as a child. And my whole life, I've been pretty safe, pretty safe and secure until that car accident. And I would say that the car accident really put me in a I like to say not accident, it was really a shift. I really felt like the Lord shifted me, shifted my mindset, actually protected me in ways that I thought I was going one direction, one leaving the state of Oregon, moving to North Carolina. And the Lord definitely said, not now. But during those, the past 2 years, I've really been seeing how unsafe relationships can be if we cannot be vulnerable or have our own ideas. We have people that can cross over boundaries pretty easily, and the ones that you try to put boundaries up on, they get the most frustrated and angry with you. And I think, as I go into these different industries, I would say that I've been called into: music, film, government, education, business. Safety is a really big measure, especially as a female. I'm realizing, sometimes us as women, we can actually diminish our voice or our responsibility. And I think it's important that we actually call one another higher. And, meekness is not weakness. Meek is, strength under control. And I think the positions that the Lord has placed me in, out of just me saying yes, I've been in some very ambiguous rooms. And it's not for me to be a bold voice, but for me actually to observe and to bring a nurturing conversation into the room that maybe would not have happened. Especially, I would not have probably had the demeanor without this shift happening, because I was in such a hyper-producing, productive performance. I'm not really concerned about people's emotions. I want to get something done so I can move on to the next thing. And I think with my brain literally shifting and rewiring to the point where adrenaline was my drug of choice, and there was something that fed me and it gave me energy. And now it's opposite. It actually exhausts me. So the Lord took me into a place where I could do multiple things, and there was multiple voices around me, to now I just can't do that as much. And what that has caused me to do is be very intentionally focused and responsive of my yes. knowing that I have to say no to good things. Especially being in PR, everybody wants promotions. Everybody wants a positioning in, their messaging to get more engagement, more visibility. And I could do that for a time. But now I think that's why this is such an amazing thing that you're doing, Megan, is bringing coaching together in a collective, because that's something that I kind of put on the back burner because I did 20 years of kind of the life coaching with artists. And then I got into the frenzy of media publicity. And I tell you what, that's a whole other brain that you have to put on, because you have to act quick, you have to think quick, and emotions are negated. But when you get to know people and you get to know their heart and their story, and really, like you said, the identity connected to the dreams, I'm realizing, wow, Lord, this is such an opportune time for someone like yourself to come around these women and myself and say, hey, how can we call out the gold that's inside of you to bring even greater impact, but also in a safe, nurturing way where you don't feel like you're just a machine producing?
Yeah. Well, I think we're better together. I think God created us to be unified and to partner. He talks about that not all of us are a hand or the mouth, but when we come together, and another, I'm just learning so much as I'm going back through the Bible and really trying to go deeper and see God in the stories. And at the Tower of Babel, I think I never saw this before, and till I was really spending time with the Lord and learning more about this event, where the people were all coming together. They had one voice. There was only one language at that point, and they had set this really lofty goal. They're gonna build this tower that reaches to the sky, right? This is way back in the day. They did not have all like this heavy equipment and cranes and all of that, but they were having such success that it says it caught the eye, the attention of God, and he came down to take notice of it. And while they were doing something that was very like prideful, and it was like they wanted to be famous, it was not, bringing honor and glory to God. And so he dispersed them, and that's when all of these different languages came to be. But what it highlights is like the power of unity,
right?
That together we can do things that seem impossible. And the power of communication, right? Like if we can start communicating more effectively with each other. And, this has been a journey for me, because I grew up in a very black and white, this is what the Bible says, this is what we do, very at times judgmental, not really taking time to understand the story behind certain behaviors, that are being demonstrated. And as I have gone through my journey of healing in my places of trauma, the Lord really has allowed me to see how that behavior does not allow safety. And as the church, we are the church, right? We're supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We're supposed to just pour out all of us and let Jesus flow through us. Yet we pick it, we make judgments, we are not nice to the people who see the world differently. And what we don't realize is we were created to live in these ways of, whether it's abortion or, being in same-sex marriage or different things like this. But trauma happens,
Right.
and it rewires our brain. And I remember a time I was having a conversation where someone said to me, they were talking about someone and how they didn't believe they were saved based off of their fruits. You'll be known by their fruits. And I said to that person, well, then when do you think I got saved? And they're like, probably not until a few years ago. This conversation was not that long ago. 4 years maybe. And this was an important person in my life that I had held as a very model of Christian, and probably put in a place of, I saw this person as so perfect and the one to strive to be like. And in the past, those words would have destroyed me because I didn't have a strong identity. But I was able to sit there and to look at that person and say, no, I know exactly when I was saved. I was saved at 5 years old with my mom praying with me. And then I experienced sexual trauma that resulted in beliefs and other things that had happened. And I acted out, and I got into unhealthy relationships. And these things happened because I didn't have somebody who came alongside of me, that it wasn't safe.
Right.
I mean, I had so much shame because of what happened in high school. So at this time in my life, when this really hard thing happened, it was, I kissed dating goodbye was the thing. And I just had so much shame, even though what had happened to me was not something that I was, actively seeking in my life. I felt so much guilt and shame, and I did not reach out for any help. And that just compounded the trauma. And so I share that just as an example of unintentional damage of the church and of people just not getting to know someone, right? Because there were things about me that had changed. And they were just, oh, she's just being a rebellious teenager, or this, because my heart is not one of rebellion. And when you get to know me, you would know that. And so if you start to get to know people and understand that what you're seeing as the choice that you don't agree with could potentially be some sort of wounding that if you came alongside of, that they could receive healing, and God would be able to release their identity and the dreams that He has for their life.
Yeah. Well, and I think doesn't that go back to kind of what we were talking about, last week, about be someone for someone and be one for someone, right? So it's all about how can we steward relationships well, knowing that is God's heart. He's all about reconciliation. He's all about bringing us to the restored justice and righteousness of Him. And we are all He's got to demonstrate the love to everyone around us. I think we have to be so careful. I've been having some conversations, and I think we have to be so careful on our expectations for the world, because if they don't know Jesus, we can't expect them to be like Jesus. The things that bring us to our questions on certain moral issues, if they don't know Jesus, we shouldn't be trying to condemn them, because we need to represent and represent Jesus to them, not in a harsh, accusatory, reprimanding, mean way. Because we're not just about people getting their fireproof insurance. We're about people encountering the living Jesus so their life is transformed. And I think we as Christians, we need to represent him in a different way, because the world is screaming a loud message, but we as Christians, we're just screaming another message that isn't filled with love. So we can't expect people that don't know Jesus to act like Jesus. The same convictions aren't going to convict them. But how can we, as Jesus lovers, display Jesus to them? That's my heart. It's like the Lord has really had to convict me, because I grew up in the church and I grew up in a very charismatic movement. And he really had to show me, Julie, I love them, but I need you to love them. And you can't just love them to a place where they have to behave a certain way. You love them into a relationship with me so that they don't want to behave like the world. But I think we're doing an opposite message. We're saying we want you to behave like us as Jesus followers, when they don't even have a relationship. I think that's very unkind.
That's that approval, right?
Yep.
That's that look a certain way, act a certain way, because this is what's acceptable. When that Jesus, like all the stories in the Bible, they're misfits. Like, the more I read, I'm just like, wow, and we just see these stories cycle over and over, and he keeps making a way, and until he comes back, he's going to keep making a way. I don't know how many times I had to fall down and fail and surrender, and just he picks me back up. I move forward a little bit further, and because we're human and we're flawed, and so I think that it is I'm believing in seeing a movement where people are coming out as leaders and talking about the hard things, just like we're doing here today, not just to talk about for me how hard, but to say there's hope. That Jesus restores, that you're not alone, that you're no different, your story's no different than my story. Like, let's support each other. And I'm excited because I think this shift that is happening is what will bring about revival and
reformation, Renaissance.
So many
he's the greatest solutionary, right? I mean, he's the greatest solutionary. We can come with our solutions, but if they don't have a stamp of his yes on them, all we're doing is just going around that mountain, complaining and whining. And we're like, prayer is the essential element that will move the needle. Prayer.
And prayer, and when you said that, I was like, yes, prayer is a two-way conversation. So not just going to him, do this, what's next, but then being open to hearing him. Because I'll tell you, sometimes when I open myself up to hear him, I'm like, oh, that means that has to change. And so often I think, at least, on my own journey, when I was really in these dark places, I was praying. I just didn't have my ears turned on to hear. Or I was hearing and I was like, that's too much. Like, I can't deal with that today. I have little children. I have to just survive. And so I got stuck in this survival mode. At some point, that will break. Absolutely. And you will have to deal with it. And so if I had words of advice, it would be like, don't wait. Like, just ask the Lord, start asking him, what do you want me to do in this situation? How do you want me to respond? Open my eyes so I can see what you're calling me to. And I love that you brought up that if all of us just looked for one, do you know how much better the world would be?
Right.
Because right now we're all so stuck in survival mode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're all
Yeah.
just trying to make it through the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great to have conferences and hear people speak. And yes, will that be an encouragement? Will it move the needle forward some? Yes, but in order to see transformation, it has to be done in connection.
Yeah.
And you can't be connected to someone standing on the stage and you
Right.
being, a member of a crowd. We need to start doing life more closely together. And I know that that's what we're trying to encourage people to do. That's what we're living out in our life as members of the collective, because it's a place where we encourage each other, where we have accountability to, we're asking for God to speak and to move within our little community. And then it allows us to be built up. We're operating in our strengths because we can operate together versus like going at it alone. And we make things better when we do that. Just more will be accomplished. And so tell us a little bit about the organizations that you are involved in and some of the things that you're working on. And then at the end, close us out with how they can contact you and the kind of coaching that you are offering on the collective.
Yeah, absolutely. The couple of organizations that I'm really kind of focusing on right now, of course, as you know, is She Leads Oregon, which Megan and I are co-leading that. And it's really about
which you did joke a little bit.
Yeah, we tried to leave.
You and I
we tried to leave Oregon.
Both.
Yeah.
And God said, no,
yeah,
you're actually going to get really involved and be part of the solution. Like, you don't just get to say, hey, I don't like this. This doesn't align with me. Let me go find someplace else. And maybe that's okay. God might call you to that. But
our story was
neither Julie or I.
Yep, that's our story.
Yeah.
So, and it's all about, bringing faith-based solutions to modern day challenges. So we're really just focusing on, getting the community together and talking about some problems that we want to see change, and then honoring the women in our state that are really making these moves and that they're standing on the front lines. And it's just an incredible, organization to be a part of. She Leads America is the national organization. So if you're listening today and you're like, gosh, I would love to be a part of something like that, then go to the website, because we have, I think, about 25 to 30 other states that have launched. And it's just, I would say it's such a room of purity, integrity, honor, and just healthy leaders that are emotionally and spiritually just saying yes to what God is asking them to do. And again, out of that yes, the Lord is positioning them in great ways for influence and impact. So it's also really where the influencers intersect with the intercessors. And so again, prayer is what can change things. And it's not something that we just do. We need to make that an intentional part of our day-to-day, relationship with the Lord. So She Leads Oregon. And then Megan and I, again, this is just, the Lord is so fun, because with Megan's background and with my background, she is the one that can take ideas and put structure and organization into place. And we were on a prayer call and heard the name Crisis Intervention Coalition. And then the Lord just breathed on it, gave Megan all of this downloaded content. And we're basically looking for teams, again, to address some of these societal issues and just bring communication to the table and see how we can influence and impact our city. So more to come on that. Megan and I are kind of percolating some ideas. Again, it's all about God's timing and what He's doing. And the other thing, like I mentioned before, Fierce Princess Warriors, that's just an incredible group of women that I feel like will start to expand into some of these things. Just haven't had the the time or the yes yet to be able to roll that out, but I do believe it's coming. Of course, my business, my PR, I do event promotions, I do consultations, I do coaching. Really, I just love to see people come alive. Oh, speaking of come alive. Oh, that's funny. Huge heart for this next generation. Huge heart. If I'm going to say yes to something and it's not going to have an impact this next generation, I'm probably not going to be as enthusiastic or passionate about it. So Come Alive is kind of a next generation media, events, collaborative, still processing, percolating what that's going to look like. But it's really to bring light into darkness and more positive messaging for the youth that normally would not step foot in a church. Because I think this generation really has a creative anointing on them that's going to release healing. And as kind of spiritual mom age and, looking at this next generation saying, how can we impact and influence and give them a voice? My heart is all about that. So those are kind of a few of the things that we're stewarding right now. Megan is coming along right side that. So, stay tuned. Who knows what else we'll be sharing? And of course, the Coach Collective, and excited for that all to be in place. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have loved coming alongside and running with you. You do run fast, which I love because normally people can't keep up with me, but I'm now trying to keep up with you. So it's a good growth opportunity for me. Really excited about building the crisis intervention coalition and really helping people to do the work that they need to do, right? I think the Lord is calling us all to recognize the wounding that we have, because we all have it, to do the work so that we can stop passing down these things within our family lines and the generations, and then that we become activated to be part of the solution. And again, just getting involved in your community, because just like we were talking about in the Tower of Babel with communication and things, we have to work within our communities, because it's not a one size fits all solution, because there are different backgrounds, different languages, different, all kinds of things that have to be taken into consideration. That's why really and truly the government cannot solve all of these problems, because it's just like in medicine, one size does not fit all. And so I'm excited to help people who have a vision in their community, but don't know how to go about operationalizing it and getting the word out like you do know how to do. And so just bringing people into these communities that can equip and empower them to go and do what they're called to do. We're just there to give them the springboard, because there's too much to do. We all have to start taking account and action for what's going on around us. So I'm really excited about all of these different things and the impact that it will have on the next generation, and to just see the revival. I believe Oregon is going to be on the national stage for the things already. It's being, things that we didn't think were going to change, like our drug law, that miraculously, because it was voted down and the governor has made adjustments and things are changing. That alone is getting national attention. And I just believe that we're surrendering here in Oregon. We're saying enough's enough, and that we're ready for something different. And it's going to just breathe new life into this beautiful state. And it's going to be a beacon on a hill that people are going to take notice of, and it's going to impact the nation. So I'm excited, Julie, to be doing this alongside of you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your yeses. Thank you for saying yes to go to that conference, because
I know.
Our yeses are so important. You never know what they're going to lead to. So thank you guys for being here and listening. And we hope that we have brought you some inspiration that You don't have to choose to do nothing or
Right.
choose to stay stuck. You can choose something different. If you need community, we are here.
Yeah.
Listen to this podcast, subscribe to it so that you can just be encouraged every week by just what is possible.
Yeah.
And then I hope that you will receive healing for whatever it is, the wounding that is holding you back from unlocking your dreams, and that you will go forward in your identity of who you are called to be. You are loved, you are valued, you are created with a purpose, and we just release you to go and make a difference in your home and in your community so that we together can impact this world.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing this message, and with anybody who needs encouragement, we hope you will.